In this video, we're going to introduce the join command line tool. And the join command line tool is actually very interesting, amazing even. It allows you to pretty much carry on some sort of join operation like the ones that you have studied in your database courses on a text file. So we have already learned to cut and paste text file with respectively the cut and paste utility. Well, this is kind of a preamble to what we can do with join, because now we can completely dissect a data file into its columns. Then we can reorder the column. We already seen how to do that, but now we can also recreate like sub data files, if you want to call them that, where we have, for example, we take a concrete example, in employee we have like all the information here. Well, we could like dissect this file with cut and generate a file that has the social security number and the clearance, and another file that has only the social security number and the salary. So the idea is that those two files are like two tables in a database that are pretty much indexed by a key, which is a social security number, right? So the join tool is going to allow you to take those two files, recognize the fact that they are indexed, both of them, by the social security number, and use that to reconstitute, output in which you are actually joining those tables according to a key. So reconstituting, the full information of social security number, clearance, and high salary. Let's take a look with a concrete example what we mean. Before we jump in, let me actually warn you about something. I have several files here, employee.db, okay, so the key is obviously the social security number right here, and it gives me a bunch of information like the clearance and the salary of the employee. Then I have a file names.db that I created off video that uses the same social security numbers, okay, and just provides us with a name of the employee, so last name, first name. And then I have a usernames.db file that's telling me pretty much, again, here's the social security number, and here is the username for that user, okay, for that employee. So username as in, logging to a server. Now, the thing I really want to stress out, is very important, is to simplify things a little bit so that I don't have to constantly sort things. You will notice that the social security number here are in ascending order. So these lines are pretty much already sorted by social security number. And in the names and usernames file, I respected that same order. So if you look at those files with respect to the social security number here in the last column, they are actually sorted by ascending social security number. Okay, so all the names are by ascending social security number. All the usernames are also by ascending social security number. This is very important. The join command line tool is meant to be applied on files that have been sorted by the keys that you want to use to do the join operation. So if you want to join the contents, the information in two different files based on a social security number that appears in both files as a different field, okay, that's fine, but you better sort those two files, both of them, by social security number before you proceed, okay? Otherwise, it's not going to work. All right, so very, very important thing. Watch out for that at the exam. There could be a very innocent looking question on, hey, I want you to do a join on those two files, and you look at the detail and the join is very simple. But you need to remember also to sort those files if they are not already sorted. Okay, so watch out for this. All right, back to our example. Let's try to illustrate at the very simplest level what join can do. So we have names here, and we have usernames. So we have two files. They use the same key, okay, the social security number. One of them gives me the username, one of them gives me the full name of the employee. So what I want to do is I want to take the data in both of those files. Again, that should remind you of what you did in database, okay? I have two tables, and I want to create an output that tells me the username and the full name of an employee, okay? And I want to do that by applying a join operation. So I refer you back to your introduction to database course again. I want to apply a join operation on the social security number key that is common to those both files. So let's have a look at how we can do that. Join, okay, obviously, that was the easy part. Then I'm going to specify two files, okay? So let's say that I start with names.db and then usernames.db. So I want to do the join between this guy here and this guy here. So in the first file, my key, if it was at the beginning of the line, I wouldn't have to worry about telling join anything. It would assume that the first field is actually the key. But here, well, here I have multiple fields, and this happens to be the last one, number 3, okay? Starting counts at 1. 1, 2, 3. So I need to be able to tell somehow that in the first file, this is the first file, names.db, the first one is specified. So in the first file, my key for the join is on field number 3. So I do that by using the option -1, which means here's a key for the first file, and then followed by a space and the number of that key. So that's assuming that we have an agreement on what is a separator. Okay, so I'm going to specify the separator that join should be looking for by using the -t option and followed by a space that I neutralize with single quotes. So now I have said, okay, I'm going to use files here, 1 and 2. The separator in both files is a space between the fields. In the first file, the third field is actually the key. And what about the second file that's specified here? Well, the key is, you skip the first field, this is field number 2. So I can specify that, and you should be able to guess easily the syntax. -2 to say, okay, let me tell you about the key to use, the field to use as a key in my second file, and then here's the field number. Okay, well, let's give it a spin like this, okay? Let's run this. So what do we get? We get a join operation. By default, join has been identifying the key here in the first file and in the second file, and put that key at the beginning of each of its output lines. So it's telling us when I join those two files for entry with social security number 000112222, okay? You asked me the name first, so I took that from the names file. Here we go, okay? And then you asked me for the username, so I took that from the username file. So I combined all of the overfields that were available in names and username that corresponded in each of those respective files to social security number 000 blah blah blah. Okay, so that's a join operation, and the both files, again, both files were already sorted, very important, and the output is also sorted, therefore, by increasing key here. Okay, so that's the basic usage of join. That's what it's designed to do. Now let's explore something a little bit more involved. Okay, so we have different options in join that are going to allow us to cope with situations where all the files that you are using do not contain information about every single possible key in your system, okay, in your database. So let me take an example here. For example, I have first in both file names and usernames, okay, we have all the social security number and information about them, okay? But what if I remove here one entry from the names.db file? So I have one social security number now that appears, one key value that appears in usernames.db, but that does not appear anymore in names.db, okay? So let's start by applying the same thing. Well, by default, you can see that I think it was McPherson, right? James McPherson is no longer reported here. So that's one way to go about it. You can say, well, yes, I only want the join between the two files, so I want every key that is present in both files to be in the output. And then I reconstitute the name and username based on what I find in the file. So if one key is present only in a single file, too bad. I'm not going to report it. And I can verify that this is symmetric. So here I still have the username entry for James McPherson, right? But it's no longer relevant. I'm going to now remove the entry in usernames for Dale Cooper, T-Coop, okay? save, but I keep in names the entry for Dale Cooper. So in other terms, I have the full name for that social security number, but I no longer have its username. And I have the username for that social security number, but I do not have anymore its full name, okay? If I apply the same join operation, you can see here that our friend Dale Cooper disappeared. So the basic join is the intersection, okay? Every key that appears in both files is going to be in the output, and for each of those keys, we are going to reconstitute the information using what is found in both files. So that's why we have all the fields here for every output, okay? We're just using the intersection. There are options to control this. For example, you can say, so I'm using the same base command line here. I'm trying to apply the same join operation. I'm just trying to control the behavior, the default behavior of join when there's some data that's missing in one file or the other. So the option -A followed by a 1 allows you to specify that you want in the output all of the entries that are in the first file, even if they don't have their key appearing in the second file. So based on our example, okay, remember what we have here. In the first file, we have Dale Cooper, but unfortunately, we don't have its username anymore in the second file. Well, no matter, because you said you want to do a join with option -A1, all the entries in file 1, the file 1 is the first one here, names.db. So if something appears in names.db that has a social security number that join is not able to find in username.db, too bad. It gives you that output line. It gives you what it knows, which is the names, because it's actually referenced to by this key, okay, the social security number, but it cannot find the username, so it just keeps that, okay? So now that we have this syntax, -all1 -A1, you can probably guess, yeah, we can do that for the second file. So we can specify -A2, and you can see here that there is an entry that looks a little bit different. Well, it's James McPherson, right? We do not find it in names.db. But since we said that we wanted all the entry from the second file usernames.db, and since it appears in usernames.db, well, there you go. The social security number is going to appear here. The only information we have is a username. We don't have any names for that social security number. No matter, that works. We just put the information that we have, okay? So depending on what you are trying to do with your join, you might want to specify -A1, -A2, or you might want to even specify both -A1 and -A2, which means you are asking join to not just give you the intersection, but give you actually to ensure that actually all of the entries that are in one file or the other, even if they don't have a corresponding entry in the other file, are going to be listed here. Therefore, most of our results contain the social security, the last name, the first name, and then the username. But some of our results, they contain only partial information. Like for example, for Dale Cooper, we have only the name. For James, we have only the username, because this piece of data only appeared in one of the files, not both of them. Okay. Similar to the -A option, we have another option that is influencing, what kind of lines make it to the output when not everything is present in every file according to the primary key you are using. Okay, that option is -V. So it's going to be similar, syntactically speaking. It's -V1 or -V2 or -V1 and -V2. Okay, so we're going to go over those three scenarios, but the meaning is the opposite. When you specify -V1, you want to say that the entries from the first file, in this example names.db, that do not have a corresponding entry on the second file need to be displayed. So it's the opposite of the previous operation. In the previous operation, you take the base join and you add everything that is in file 1 but not in file 2. Here, we want to see only what is in file 1 and is not in file 2. We can double check that the output is correct, okay? In file 1, I do have an entry for that social security number, Dale Cooper. In file 2, I do not have an entry for him. Okay, so that was forcing to isolate the entries of names.db that do not have a corresponding entry in usernames.db. And obviously, as you guessed by now probably, if I do v2, I want exactly the opposite. I want the entries from usernames.db, so James is indeed an entry in usernames.db, that are not appearing in names.db. So entries from the second file to here, usernames.db, that are not in names.db, according to always the key that we specified, okay? We have kept the whole key, which is social security number, for the whole duration of this video. And then last example, well, we can do -v1, -v2, and now it's telling us, okay, these are pretty much all the entries that appear in one file but not the other, regardless of, you know, whether it's the first file and not the second, or the second file and not the first one. So again, we get the sum of the result of the previous operation pretty much here, okay, which makes sense. So that's it for join. An interesting thing I want to remind you of, besides, you know, you have to go and take a look at the main page and study it, is obviously this is a filter. So that means that once again, I could do something like, you know, when I started the video, I told you, well, I wanted to do a basic join like this, okay, to get the names and the username. Well, okay, I almost got that right, except the key is still in the way, but we learned previously that we could, you know, for example, well, let me add something here to the code command, that we could, you know, for example, extract one key here, sorry, one column of data, but except that this is exactly the opposite of what I want to do. So I would here say something like 2, 3, 4, all right, but you know, maybe I just want to do that in a little simpler way. I want to say, well, I want to remove, actually, I don't want to extract the first column, I want to extract every column but the first one. So if you want to do that, there's a little trick I didn't cover in the code video. You specify your field as usual here, okay? But we have how do you call it? An option, sorry, I'm forgetting my words here. We have an option here, -- complement. That means pretty much, hey, I'm giving you a list of fields, you know, or an interval of fields, and instead of giving you the fields I want you to extract, I'm giving you the fields I don't want you to extract, but by default, extract everything else. So that's going to play nicely with what we want to do, okay? And then we could play even more with that, okay? We could say, for example, well, I want the username first and then the name after. So that would be actually easy. That would be a matter of saying, you know, I want usernames here, and then I want names, and obviously, since I change the order of the files, I'm going to change here where I find the key in each file, okay? And that would allow me to do this. But if I just wanted to play, you know, say to practice for the exam or something like that, I could keep, you know, this first version here, and then feed that into a temporary file. So dump it into, for example, TMP, okay, and then use cut and paste again to extract, you know, the name in one side, the username in the other, and then paste again to recombine them in a different order. So I'll leave that up to you as a good little exercise to practice. Actually, if you try to do that, you bump into problem. Go seek help, office hours, TA session, forums, there's plenty of way to get help on that kind of stuff, okay? So use that so that we can help you understand pretty much what you missed and allow you to complete that kind of little exercise. All right?